Hey there, rock and roll podcast fans. This is Mike Hoban. Welcome to Rat Tales, the podcast that brings you the music and stories of the Boston rock scene that grew out of the mid-'70s at the Rat and some of the other hellhole joints, each with their own sick charm.
We drop in the Dogmatics and the understated elegance of their Thayer Street hideaway, soon subject to urban renewal.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Dogmatics!
The Dogmatics, a documentary, is a story of a band of Catholic school hooligans who just happen to have played a role in influencing a thriving Boston music scene, then and now. The Dogmatics were established in 1981. Paul O'Halloran got together with his identical twin brother Peter to form a new band.
Then I remember they told me, like, we're moving to this loft in Boston. We're going to start a band with Jerry. It's interesting that there's going to be a band with twins in it. I wonder if that's ever happened before.
Because when we started living at the loft, we became aware of the existence of cockroaches, right? So I think Jerry in particular didn't like them, and that's what that song is about.
They were Boston's house band, to me.
So that's a fun song, you know. It also gives you the opportunity as a guitar player, when it goes down to just drums and bass, to walk over to your amplifier and take a swig off a beer. Me and Pete would often do that together, look at each other, raise a beer, and take a swig.
The Dogmatics were no different than any other talentless, self-deprecating, beer-swilling, girl-chasing lunkheads with guitars. They were young, selfless, and affable. Playing was the only thing that mattered.
I later became a middle school teacher, and, you know, nothing can train you better to, you know, run a middle school classroom in New York City than having worked with the Dogmatics for 3 or 4 years.
It's a living organism. It's not just like super well rehearsed and then go thanks and split. It's like, you never know, you might see a fist fight. This could be good. I'm gonna watch.
They just have that thing about they're Boston. There's never been a more Boston band than the Dogmatics.
They're not an 80s act, they're not a revivalist act, they're not a reunion. They're not an oldies act. They are a band, a current band.
The Dogmatics might very well be the most emblematic Boston band of this half-century that too few people know about.
Welcome to Rat Tales. We're here today with Jerry Lehane, Pete O'Halloran, and James Young of the Dogmatics. They burst onto the Boston rock scene as teenagers in 1981 and are still performing today. In fact, the Dogmatics will be headlining the 50th anniversary of the Rat at the Belforge Arts Center on September 21st, along with the Nervous Eaters. It's in the afternoon from 3 to 7, so old people like me and Lenny can still make the early bird special. So thanks for joining us today, guys. I really appreciate it. It took a while for us to hook up, but I think it's going to be worth it.
You know what? I think actually the Nervous Eaters are headlining, so they're on the top billing, but we're the set before them, which we now call, that is the headline set. Third is now the best set. The last one they call deadlining. It's deadline. You want to be number 3 when you're old. You don't want to be the last guy on.
Yeah. If we play the mid, I have a punk classic cover band, and we never want to be the last band because we play at the Midway and people just leave. You know, people don't want to hang out anymore than droves. So.
But the Nervous Eaters preceded us chronologically anyway. They were before us, and we really dug them before we were even a band, and so that's how that works.
And that's something I want to talk about. So I'm just going to tell my experience with you guys. So what I remember. So I was a pretty frequent Rat guy. I'm not one of those guys who spend every night in the Rat, but I was there an awful lot. And I remember, so at the beginning of your documentary, the narrator says that, the Dogmatics were about making money, more about meeting women, or simply completing a song in unison. And that's how I remember you guys from the first time I saw you with the Rat. Is that like it's not like you sounded when I saw you with the Regent when you were a lot more polished. I just remember you as being like these totally mental teenagers that just like just blew me away though. So what I want to talk about is we'll talk about like the evolution of the sound and stuff, but I think we probably start by going back to the beginning, and I heard it in the documentary. I saw in the documentary you guys met in first grade.
That's right.
Yep.
First grade, 6 years old. You are in sixth grade? Yeah.
Yeah, it's St. Matthew's Parish, which is that would, like you said, you were Upham's Corner, which would be closer to Savin Hill, maybe. We were like closer to Ashmont Station, which is on the red line, the last stop before you get on the green trolley that goes to Mattapan. So
yeah, we were on the wrong side of the tracks, I guess you would say.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, I'd say Upham's Corner was there too. So,
yeah.
So were you guys just all best buds right from the beginning? It's just the three is right. And your brother too, Paul.
You know, so when I mean, he probably has a different idea. When I saw those guys, that Peter and Paul, his brother Paul, they were identical twins. They both had glasses on. Like, when we have glasses as a little kid, it's not a usual thing. And Paul had a patch over one of his eyes, like that when you had a lazy eye back then.
Yeah.
They would put a patch on one eye to make the lazy eye work better.
Right. And then we grew up, and so that was 1965, 66, 67. And it's weird enough being a twin, but then when you go there and everybody's idea of like every adult's idea of a joke was go, Peter and Paul, you got a sister named Mary? Because, man on a jet plane was very popular then. And of course, I'm from a giant family. Of course, I had a sister named Mary. I'd be like, yeah, what else you want to know, guy? It was very annoying. I had to put up with that at a very early age.
It is true. So they do have a huge family where I was 4 in mine. When Pete, how many was in your family?
10 in my family.
10.
Wow.
10, yeah.
Which wasn't necessarily that unusual.
No, that's a normal Irish family. I was right in the middle with 6.
Yeah, right. That's half of an Irish family.
Yeah.
Right. But anyways, yeah. So me and Peter and Paul, we became friends, and I would go I lived on Rockwell Street. Those guys lived 3 blocks away on Fuller Street, closer to Lower Mills, and we would, I'd go over their house sometimes and build models, play hockey, all kinds of stuff like that.
All that kid stuff, yeah.
All kid stuff, yeah. We had a blast when we were little,
Be like, build models so we could light them on fire, give them.
That's true, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Put firecrackers on them and throw them in the air and you blow them up. Yeah, exactly.
Those kind of kids.
We're all about realism.
So what? When you guys, you grow up and when you're listening to musically as kids, you all like. I mean, I'm a couple years older than you guys, so I listened to a lot of pop for a long time, and then my sister turned me on. So how'd you guys end up gravitating to the sound that you did? What happened?
Well, we all listened to the same stuff you did, and you. We all listened to the same stuff, so it's like sugar, bum, 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 bum,
yeah, exactly.
On the cover of the Rolling, and just this amalgam of everyone gets it, and then you go like, "Hey, I like that song. I like Little Willie Willie Won't." We sit there and all the songs that just subtly influence you. You figure out what you like after a while.
Yeah, I remember hearing like Heart of Gold, like standing in line. So when we would leave school, we would actually have to stand in line. And before we were let out of our parochial school, St. Matthew's, and I would on the AM radio, if someone was playing, you'd hear Heart of Gold, you'd hear Seasons in the Sun, all those like pop classics.
Forget about that one.
That were on like
Ever Rains in California.
Yeah, AM radio basically. But what happened was around the 7th grade, our friend TK, who lived also on Fuller Street, and we were all hung around together. TK had an attic where we would play cards. Well, Peter and Paul didn't play cards, but me and my other buddies would play cards up there. And TK kind of discovered music for us. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
He was listening to like Deep Purple, Jay Giles,
very big into Aerosmith, the first record.
Aerosmith, yeah. And then a lot of it had to do with he had older brothers that had records. So we would literally go up there and we'd be listening to like, Made in Japan and like, fall in love with a song like Lazy. I don't know if you remember that. And those are all like,
and my brother Jimmy had an 8-track cassette in his Pontiac Catalina, and we would listen to Made in Japan and Highway Star.
And
that was a great album.
It stands the test of time for sure.
Machine Head.
You remember the Bay? You remember the Bay City Rollers? Do you remember those guys?
Yes.
So I remember that came out maybe in the 8th grade, maybe the 9th grade. No, 8th grade was Grand Funk American Band, right?
Yep.
And it was huge. It was just a huge hit. And Jay Giles was You've Got to Give It to Me. I remember hearing that on the radio all the time, and it was like, I don't know, there was something about it, like you knew it, you didn't realize they were local, and I think as kids we thought Peter Wolf was Jay Giles, like what you think we didn't know that he was just the lead singer, and there was John Giles, who was the blues guitar player that actually started the band, and Peter was like the lead singer. That kind of, but when you think of Jay Giles, you think of Peter Wolf, right? There's just the wooba gooba, and we loved all that stuff. And my friend TK started playing the guitar.
Right. And then his brother also had a guitar, his older brother. And somebody got his hands on a Fender Mustang, and he was like trying to learn how to play it. We were always trying to pass that around. And we got our hands on a Humble Pie record, of course.
That's right.
Smoke in and eat it. And we like, listening to that stuff. And the one thing happened like years and years later when we did tour the country. We were playing in Cleveland, we're backing up Steve Marriott from Humble Pie's latest effort. I think it was like Packet of 3, 1985 or so.
Yeah, it was
Rick Derringer, though,
we got to play with like our ultimate hero, Steve Marriott.
Yeah, that was
super cool.
That was actually at it was in Cleveland at a club called Peabody's Down Under, like on the waterfront there. And it was billed as Humble Pie, featuring Steve Marriott. He was the only original member in the band.
And his Packet of 3, and he had like a Rasta man drum double bass.
And he was a little guy. He was probably like 5'5", maybe.
Yeah, he was real small, and he made his barcodes really weird, like.
Yeah, he would do it.
It was just something you notice. Anybody could sing, man, and he was really cool to us because we did we dedicated Money Honey. Remember we did
Money Honey? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and
he got a laugh out of it.
Well, he sang it. We were upstairs after like we played, and he came in and he started singing it.
Yeah, well,
and he could actually sing. He could really sing, and you were like, "Oh my God, this guy's got a voice," And
it was cool.
But anyways, we jumped all over the place.
But early on,
But that's we started playing music. We never had the idea of forming a band in the 8th grade. When 8th grade came in Dorchester, that was right in the midst of busing. So busing had just happened, and they had what they called white flight. And a lot of the people were moving down to the suburbs, and it was like the Irish Catholics would all move down the South Shore, all the Italians moved to the North Shore.
And it was a very subtle thing. It wasn't just like in 73. It had started in the
it happened for a while, and the Catholic Church was giving us signs that would tell all of us to bring home to your parents. It would say "Mine's not for sale." They didn't want remember those signs?
Yeah.
To not sell your house. But once one person sold the house, so everyone started leaving.
Yeah, there was a book written about it. It's like this socio-economic thing. They call it blockbusting.
Common Ground, right? Is that the name of it? Yeah.
Yeah. So I moved down to Weymouth, North Weymouth, and that was at the end of the 8th grade. So I finished the 8th grade, and then I went into high school down there. Peter, you stayed behind, right?
Yeah.
For what?
Paul, and our other friend TK, we ended up going to Boston Tech the first year, and it was '74, the first year of desegregation, as they called it. But the
Yeah.
school we went to, Boston Tech, was called a magnet school. You're supposed to like, I'm going to go there and learn a trade and all this stuff, which it did offer some things. One thing it offered was printing, which is kind of glad I didn't get into that because that's a pretty dead thing now, right? But there were various taught machine shop woodworking and drafting, such things as that. And it was pretty interesting, but we did have the kind of what you would call the same problems that a lot of people had during that, because we were like white guys going into Roxbury, and we suffered those repercussions the same way.
Yeah.
And not being that smart, but not being that dumb either. I'd see the 6 o'clock news, and I'd see, big riot in South Boston. The TPF, the Tactical Police Force, were, trying to keep the the white residents from attacking all the black students that were getting shipped in. And I go, I wonder what's going to happen tomorrow when I go to school. And there was always a backlash and, busted windows on the bus, glass in your hair, and a couple of kids. The kid next to me, Bobby Delivery's brother, got a big hunk of tar in his face, and he had to take him to the hospital. And, it was pretty weird till the first day of school after going to a Catholic school in, a one-room schoolhouse essentially, and now you got to go to this giant city school, and it was kind of a shock, but we all had to get acclimated to it.
Yeah. So you're on the South Shore, and these guys are up here. So when does the band? Well, the first band you formed is what? Savage Beasties, right?
So I was going to school down in Weymouth. These guys were down at Silver Lake High School in Kingston, and then you could take it from here, Pete, with your brother Paul starting.
Yeah, so my brother Paul was really into the bass playing. He got his hands on a Fender Mustang bass. He was playing that, and he ended up getting in a band with a couple other people we know called the Savage Beasties. Well, before that, he was in one. I think they were Freddie and the Freeloaders. It's like the typical, band that gets together, plays one gig, and breaks up, and everybody's sort of finding their way and learning how to play. And at the time, I barely played, but Paul was doing it, and I'm like, I was kind of on the outside looking in, going, "Oh, I wish I could do that," But so, eventually I did. But those guys were playing all around, toast to the South Shore, playing backyard parties. And our other friend TK was in that band, and Sam Babbitt, and various drummers. Dan Shannon, who was later became our drummer. It's just how those things happen. It gets all shook up, and who knows what's going to happen, in a year, who's going to be playing with who. But you don't think about it when you're going through it.
Right.
But you look back on it and you go, oh yeah, it all just kind of fell into place.
So how old was Paul and the guys when they did Savage Beasties?
They were like 18. They just got out of high school basically. And it was good times. And the lead singer, Mike Scagliarini, rest his soul, he's gone now, but he was like the real, like, ladies man, had a mustache and a striped shirt and long hair, the Rod Stewart of Plymouth, we were calling him.
Yeah, he was an amazing singer, kind of in the vein of David Johansen, I would say.
A harmonica player, yeah.
Harmonica player. His band was the New Frustrations. I don't know if you remember those guys. They played around
from recent times. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, good band. And the other guy that he mentioned, Sam Babbitt. Sam Babbitt went on, moved out to San Francisco, and started the band called the Catheads, and they got signed to Homestead, the same record company that we were on, which is based out of New York, or Dutch East India Trading. That was Sam Berger's label that became Gerard Cosley's label. And so anyways, it was funny that, and then when we were out touring in San Francisco, we hooked up with the Catheads. I don't know if we played with them. Do you remember, Pete?
No, but we went to we stayed with them, and then we went to one of their shows. I think it was. Oh yeah, that was a very funny thing that happened while we're out in San Fran back then. It was 84, 85, and Sam's band was playing at this place, and they called it the Farm, and it was somewhere on the the outskirts of San Francisco, and it was you were upstairs and it was like a barn, and you became aware there were slats in the floor. There were animals underneath because you could smell them. I don't know what kind of animals, like barnyard animals, were underneath. Yeah, it's the farm, and it's like the hippie thing never went away, and people are sitting cross-legged and barefoot, and they're playing acoustic guitars, and yeah, it was all cool and everything. So me and Paul were by the side by a table having a drink, and there was this very tall, beautiful, all girls are beautiful when you're 20, and she was wearing a dress and just like, she caught our eye and we just looked at her, and then all of a sudden she just kind of keeled over. She like fainted, and we, before she hit the ground, we just like put our beers on the table and caught her. And Paul looks at me and goes, "Quick, let's get her out to the van."
Dude,
she was only kidding,
I know.
And then, she woke up and we said, "Are you okay?" And it was, gave her some water or something.
You know who the band was playing on stage that?
No.
It was Van Beethoven.
Oh, yeah, right.
Really?
Yeah. It was early on, yeah.
Now Cracker, right?
Now Cracker, yeah, that's Steve Lowery.
I love those guys.
Very good band, yep.
So you do it. So the Savage Beasties, Paul's playing with them. You guys aren't. So that band. Now that was, you mentioned the New York Dolls. The Dolls were very influential with you guys.
So that's where that comes in right about then.
Exactly.
Everybody started, discovered the Dolls, and there was this huge contingent from the South Shore down, particularly in Plymouth, who really caught on with the New York Dolls and dug it, and so that kind of was the next step where everybody started. They started doing Dolls covers, and they used to do.
It was so different, from what I mean, especially when we grew up with like Humble Pie and stuff like that, and Deep Purple. All of a sudden, you go to New York Dolls, they're dressed in drag, and they're like, and they rock like nobody's business, like 50s rock,
Well, yeah, and they play. So we ended up like later on, we would, and the Savage Beasts would cover the song "Pills."
Yep.
The harmonica in there and all that.
The Dogmatics would cover Pills.
Yeah, and we did it, but like. It's been years. It took me 40 years before I heard the original by Bo Diddley.
The funny thing about it. So when I moved to Weymouth, there was a Building 19, like in Hingham, like right. I don't know if you know Weymouth, but if you're going in Nantasket, there's Route 3A, and 3A goes over the Hingham Bridge, and on the left there used to be a Building 19, and me and my brother Marky would go there and. Buy stuff for cheap. And we liked, I liked music, then I liked rock music. And they used to have just a big giant bin full of 8 tracks. Like, and I wouldn't know. I just and I remember going, what the fuck? This, looking at this, 8 track, and it was the New York Dolls. I had no idea who they were, but I was like, this looks really interesting. And I remember taking it home, and I had a K-part stereo. So it had the turntable on top, the radio, and the 8-track all in one, and 2 shitty speakers, right? It's probably like $129 back then or something like that. I remember putting it in and being like, these guys sound like the fucking Stones. Like I was thinking exactly like it, every single song. And so the weirdest thing is, so I'm listening to this. Me and Peter and Paul aren't hanging around right now because they live in Kingston and Weymouth, but I'm listening to this. Paul's playing this down there. Yeah. And eventually
occasionally we'd visit you, and I remember he always had great records. Jerry had some great Through the Past, Stockley, remember?
Oh yeah,
all the Stones, and we'd get a dose of the Stones. They'd go, all those Hitchhike.
And then we had me and Paul. When we were just about 19, my mother rented a place down in Martha's Vineyard. Okay, so this is just I'm not going through the whole thing. I'm just going to tell you about the music.
He's not going to tell you all the crimes they committed.
So
it was a crime spree, actually, not just a big.
So my late brother, there was kind of a crime spree. But my mother, loved to go to the beach and everything, and she was divorced by then. And we drove the '69 Impala over there, and the weather was really horrible. And I remember my mother turning to me. She's like, "This sucks. I'm fucking going home. You and Marky and
my brother Paul was with them.
Paul can stay here because Paul had just turned 18. I was 17. My other brother was 16 years old. Okay, so everyone else went home. So Paul had just got his, an ID, where he could buy liquor because the drinking age was
18 in
16.
minutes. Yeah.
Yep. It was a
And
short
so,
window.
so we had a place on Martha's Vineyard. We had a car. We had a legal drinking age, and we had we had 3 tapes, like 8 tracks. We had Rough Mix, which was Peter Townsend and Ronnie Lane. We had Leonard Skinnard, and what was the other one? We had Who live at Leeds, and that's all we listened to the whole time while we were down there, and we had a blast. But anyways, it was a good thing as far as music goes. Like me and Paul seemed to like the same sort of like rock. And
aren't you going to tell them what happened down there?
No. This is more about the Rat Tails. I'm not going to tell about the Climb Spree. Okay, so at any rate, that'll be for another one, another
The
tale.
statute of limitations is past, Jerry.
Yeah, I don't know what you're afraid of.
No one got arrested. There was a lot of bad stuff, not bad stuff that we got away with. And that's all I can say.
Funny humorous crimes.
I'll give you a fast one. This won't have anything to do with my brother. My brother was notorious, but me and Paul and Marky, my brother Marky, my younger brother, we went and got some Bulmer's apple cider wine. Okay, I've never had it before, but Paul must have had it somewhere down in Kingston, and he loved it, so we bought a case of it. And we went to the beach all day. We were drinking it on the beach. And then we were staying in Vineyard Haven, and we went down to Edgartown, which is like kind of fancy schmancy, rich. And there's a bridge there, not a bridge, a ferry that goes over to Chappaquiddick. That's the famous, ferry where Ted Kennedy went into the water and didn't rescue the girl that he was with, right? So we were drinking the Bulmer's apple cider, like there's like a deck there that overlooks like the water where the ferry comes up, takes a car, brings it across, and then literally you can see the other side. It's not that far. Well, there was a cop on the beat. He came up and he took our Bulmer's apple cider away because
Boone's Farm, right?
I don't know if it was Boone's Farm.
No, it was Magna's cider.
Magna's cider.
Okay.
So he took it, and we were pissed. He didn't arrest or anything like that. So we're going back, right?
I want to make sure you tell this the right way.
So we're going back, and me and Paul are in the front. My brother Mark's in the back. We still have a cooler. It's full of ice. And as I'm driving by, I see the cop talking to like either his friends or some tourists, and he's holding up the what he just took from us, like kind of bragging about it. And I said, "Give me that ice." And I took the ice and I flung it. And I swear to God, it was like slow motion. It hit him like on the head, went all the way down his body. And he's furious, and we gunned it. And as we're driving, we're like, "We're on an island."
Paul goes, "You're on an island, remember?" You weren't getting away.
And you know what?
You got away.
So we did. We got away with it. And we were still pissed that they took our Bulmer's apple cider. But we hit the cop with like a bunch of ice. I mean, harmless, right? But it was funny.
You're laying the groundwork to be real punk rockers.
I know.
Nobody takes our cider.
But anyway, so that was a early age, and then tell how. I guess the transition from us getting together was Paul talking to, again, our friend TK, who you tell him about how TK met Barry Hall and with Barbara Kennedy, and they got the loft.
So he met another guy that we used to work with, and he was like a real artist guy.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. And he did a whole lot of things. He was making like films in high school and just really into music. He was a real Anglophile, really into the Who and everything. And so him and I started, he asked me if I wanted to join a band with him. I'm kind of like, well, I know a couple of chords, but yeah, okay, I'll give it a try. So we did, and we sort of started working towards making a set, and we probably learned about 6 or 7 songs, a couple of months practicing all summer. He's like, we just want to have enough. Actually, what his goal was, we just want to get enough songs so we can play a set at the Rat. Okay. So we're working towards it all summer. We practiced in this place in Brockton in this terrible spot, and just when we were ready to do it, he was very mercurial, he's like, I quit. I can't do this anymore. What happened, So that was our first band. And we had this real cool drummer, this Joey O, another guy we knew from Dorchester. And so that was my first band that I played in mostly. But then, when we got a couple of songs under our belt, I'm like, hey, this is a thing that everybody can do, And then at that point, that's around when, shortly after the whole Savage Beastie things happened, and they all moved down to Manomet together, and they became serious about, living together, kind of like the Monkees showed us. If you watched any of that stuff as a kid, rock bands live together, man. Or if you saw any of the Beatles cartoons. Yeah. And so at that point now, Jerry didn't you have a band on the South Shore down there?
Where?
Oh, he's not listening.
Hello.
Playing with his dog.
Good
A
girl.
dog. Nola.
You still talking, Pete?
No, I'm ready. I'm handing it off to you. You started playing with somebody down in Hanover or something, didn't you?
Well, yeah, I played with Chris Kemp. You remember him? So I met this kid down in Hanover through my friend Bobby Delory, another schoolyard friend from Dorchester, and his friend Chris Kemp. I was over there one day, I remember in the summertime, and he turned me on to AC/DC. Never heard of this band. And this is early AC/DC. And I was literally blown away. I was like, oh my God. And that was like early AC/DC? Holy shit. You never heard anything like it. It was so rocking. And this kid, Chris, was a good drummer. So the first time, I had learned how to play chords and stuff. And we were doing all the typical cover songs that I think we did Cocaine. We did Sympathy for the Devil, Jumpin' Jack Flash, of course. It's hard. I can't even remember some of the other songs, but anything that we could, play that was 3 chords, and we try to mimic the bands that we liked. And AC/DC was just a different animal. Like we never heard anything so raw, and they weren't on the radio then. No one knew who they were. It was like finding, like when you find a band, it's like, oh, this band's all mine and no one else who can't, the worst thing that can happen is when they're shared with everyone and they become popular and famous, which would happen with AC/DC. But that early stuff, holy moly. So I kind of got into it with that. And then I just remember Paul had given me a call at my house in Weymouth, and he said he said that TK had a band and was playing in Boston, and they have a loft. Do you want to move up there with Peter and we can start a band? And I said, all right. He goes, you probably should take a look at the place. It's only gonna be like $75 a month. So this was when I was 19 years old. When we went in, it was just an empty space, big empty space. And I'm like, what about rooms and stuff? Oh, we'll build them. And we didn't build them. I remember we got rugs, and that's how we had our walls. We like separated by big giant rugs for the very beginning.
Yeah.
But it worked. And I mean, $75 a month, that was, it was a lot back then, but still we had our own place in town. And then we started practicing, me, Peter, Dan Shannon, and Paul. And we weren't the Dogmatics then, and we weren't doing originals. We were doing covers, basically. A lot of songs that was heavily influenced by Peter's influences from rockabilly.
Well, you know how you were saying, like you heard something like AC/DC, and you're like, this is mine. Get away! I love this stuff. I started listening. I heard Eddie Cochran and some Buddy Holly, because remember, you didn't really have easy access to this stuff. You had to really seek it out.
Right.
And when I did hear it, I was like, yeah, and it really helped me, learning how to play those 3 chords and what you like. It's what you like. And so I was digging on all that, listening to weird, rare rockabilly stuff whenever I could find it. And you know how when you like, you feel as though it's like, not like you're guarding it. Or for instance, when I was a little kid, I was really into, sharks. I love everything. I still have the February 68 edition of National Geographic that has, everything you need to know about sharks. It was a different world then. And then Jaws comes out and you're like, what the fuck, man? It's my thing. Same thing with rockabilly. And then the Stray Cats come out and you're like, oh man, that guy played better than I'll ever play if I live 3 lifetimes. So now what, But you carry on and do what you do.
Peter.
Yes.
So you guys, go ahead.
You and I did a shark project. You remember that? In Catholic school together, and we made the sharks out of the clay,
right?
Like a mako shark, a hammerhead, and I think a great white.
Yeah,
and we got up in front of the class and talk about them.
I think we won 6th grade that year.
So you guys, so the core of the band's now living in on 38th there, right? And
number 8.
Yeah, it was number 8 first.
Number 8.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys are living there, and you haven't formed the Dogmatics yet, right?
Correct.
So what are you doing? You just, but the Savage Beasties no more falls out of that, or?
Yeah, he's out of that, and we're trying to figure out. So this is the first experience. Like we threw a party, and we invited all our friends to the loft, and I think where were did we call ourselves the Gutter Snipes for that show?
Yeah, that was the first show we did.
The first show, yeah, we call
Gutter Snipes.
And I think we even made like a sheet that said Gutter Snipes, and I would say that 90% of the songs were covers and maybe one original, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
We were like doing Ramones and
yeah, that's another thing. When I discovered the Ramones, I was like, yes, and that's how you do it, But same thing, they never got played on the radio. And the rare occasions that they did, it was like, Yahoo! Stop everything. Let me listen to this.
Correct. Yeah.
So you guys, have you guys gone to like any of the Rat was one and some of the other clubs? Had you started like checking that scene out? Were you influenced by like local bands or anything, or were you
absolutely?
Oh yeah,
my God, I could go on all day about that. So that's so again, so we start playing, we start doing that, and eventually, we don't have any gigs yet. We're not playing out yet. We're just playing at the loft, having private parties. And our friend TK, who lives at the loft, is in a band with Barbara Kagan and Barry Hall and Joey O. And they were called
Barbara Kagan, the photographer.
Yeah. And they were called Spearhead Go.
Yeah.
And they would play out, and they were playing they were playing Cantones and Mavericks on Broad Street. And like when you're young, like, oh my God, you're playing out, like you think it's a huge thing, right? It's like so huge. So we're like in the genesis of the infancy of our of us playing, and we're like, we can't decide what the name. I think we went with Parochial Products. We had the Enzymes. Remember, we thought we were going to call ourselves the Enzymes.
Yeah.
And then Peter came up with the name, the Dogmatics, and he literally looked in the dictionary and liked what it meant, right? And
that's one of the questions I actually wrote down, because I'm thinking like when I'm a teenager, or if I'm just like smoking a lot of weed and I'm not thinking about the word dogma at all. It's like I don't even think I know what it meant until I get older.
Well, that was one of the things. It's to read, you would a word you would come across if you were reading, and you'd be just like, you think you know what it means, and then you finally get around to looking it up. You're like,
yeah,
and that's what it was. And I said, what? That would make a great name for band, especially in our case.
So what happens from there? So you get the guys, not jealous, but you see him with like. TK.
So TK, yeah, they're playing, and then we ask them how you do it and blah blah blah. And he goes, oh, you can call this person, or you can go down to the club. but you have to give them like a recording. So we don't have any recordings, anything. So we record. I remember for Cantones, we just recorded ourselves playing in our practice space, and we drove down to. Hold on, my dog's eating something that she shouldn't be eating. No. What do you got there?
Yeah, and also some of the other bands that were influenced, like at that time, here we are living in Boston, and we'd go to the various clubs.
Not good.
Oh,
And so
Vedville right there.
That's one of the pins.
So then, we'd see the band in particular that we really liked was the Outlets, because they were up and running and kicking ass, and the Classic Ruins, of course.
Yeah, Frank.
Yeah, so yeah, we just holy shit! You go to the Rat and see the Classic Ruins, and Frank Rowe playing and singing some of his songs. It was cool. I remember I heard him sing that song "Labatt's," and I remember being in the back going, "I gotta remember this later." So
they were very funny too. That's what was cool about the Classic Ruins. I think.
Well, exactly.
Not only were they good, they were like sort of unnatural acts. A lot of tongue-in-cheek stuff, and
Well, I mean, the playing. I mean, Frank's playing was unbelievable. He doesn't, he's much better than a lot of our contemporaries at that time. We had the real kids who we loved and stuff like that, but they were straight ahead rock and roll, kind of like us, Chuck Berry, and but Frank, it was another level of guitar playing. But let me just finish on what happened. So we were trying to get gigs, and like I said, TK and Barry said, "Oh yeah, just have to bring a tape down, and you talk to Marlo." And that's the woman. I remember me and Paul drove down there, gave her a tape. She was so not only did she book the club, she was the bartender, and did everything. And she was in a band called Dish. It was like imagine back then, an all lesbian band. And I mean, that place is like Cantones was like a shithole and a half, right? We went down there. She goes, "Oh, let me listen to it right now." Like turned around, was like a thing. Hits like, "Yeah, you guys want to play next Tuesday?"
Yeah.
And we were like, yeah, okay. And that was our first gig, and we played with Nick's Kitchen. Do you remember? No, was it Nick's Kitchen?
Yeah.
I don't know the band, but I'd never seen. And that band had a plan. They were all dressed the same, and we were just like, what? We just didn't understand it, And I just remember okay, we just kept playing there. Started playing down in Maverick, and because we lived nearby, a geographical. That was so huge. We lived on Thayer Street. We were stone's throw away from all these clubs, and we threw after-hour parties. So we'd throw parties like a Tuesday night. We were all young. The next thing you know, on weekends, we're having fucking huge parties all the time. Now we're bringing those people to the clubs. Now we move from a Tuesday night to a Friday night. We're backing up the real kids, and then the next thing. So it didn't, I mean, we could have been like the shittiest band in the world. We could have shit on stage, but if we brought in 100 people, all the owners cared about was getting fannies in the seats, and they knew all our fans drank beer.
Selling beer and liquor, yeah.
And honestly, though, even though we kind of had that name of being kind of reckless and stuff like that, we really did focus on the music. We were trying to get better. It's just, it was a volatile.
It was inevitable.
It was a volatile mixture, though, at that time, because your hormones are going crazy. You're like, you're playing in a rock band. You're single. You're out of the house for the first time, and you're just having as much fun as possible in a limited amount of time, right? So
yeah,
we took advantage of that.
At the lineup that you had at that time is you two guys, Paul, TK and Dan? Or
no, TK wasn't in the band. Dan Shannon was in the band, and he was a friend of ours from Marshfield.
And he was the Savage Beasties drummer.
And he was in the Savage Beasties. And
fisherman, right?
Yeah, he's a fisherman. He's a lobster. He's such a good guy. He was a good drummer. He was I'm not going to say he's a one-trick pony, but he was a machine. He was straight ahead.
I always thought he was like the guy from Creedence. Was it like Stu Cook or something?
Oh, he kind of looks like him too, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah.
No, so I want to tell you, you also asked about influences, and I know he mentioned the Classic Ruins. I remember the first show I ever went to at the Rat, and Paul took me, and we went to see this band Boys Life with another band from New Jersey called Shrapnel.
Oh, yeah.
This band Shrapnel, what is it? What's the guy's name? What are they called now? Let me see if I can. But Shrapnel, they had sandbags on stage at the Rat, right?
Dressed in camo and
they were all
some
dressed
great
like
songs.
army soldiers. They had the United States flag, and they all. And this singer was on. They were so tight. Let me just see. I was just blown away by them, and the guy, you know what? He's the lead singer of Monster Magnet now.
Really?
The same guy, yeah. Like he became this huge star, and he was a little guy, but I just remember like they brought in all the shit and they set it up on the stage, and it was like, I don't know, it's like half packed, and but people were going mental, like, you know. So that was the first band, and then when I saw the Outlets, oh my God,
yeah,
that band that was
also one thing that needs mentioning too is the Unnatural Eggs.
Yes, yeah. We didn't get to see them though that much. We saw the Mighty Ions. Remember, that was the band that was happening back then.
Right. But the Unnatural Eggs, so Richie Parsons was a year ahead of us at Boston Tech.
Yep.
So he was a year older. So he lived near us in Dorchester, but you know, in those days, if you lived like 6 blocks away, it was like you were from another country. You didn't mix, you know. So he lived on the other side, like in St. Brendan's. We were in St. Matthews, you know. So like he was over there, and we'd hear him talking to his buddy on the bus, like a couple seats over, and he'd be talking about, I saw a girls' school last night. I went to the Paradise, you know, on Wednesday night and saw this band, Girls' School, all girls. And, you know, we'd glean information by just hearing that, you know. And so later on, when we found out, you know, of course, we got our hands on the single, They Saved Hitler's Band. We're like, yeah, that's that guy. That's what a great song, you know?
Yeah.
So we've been buddies ever since, of course.
Yeah, you think about I mean, there were so many local bands back then that we, you know, it was weird. There was it was kind of rock, and there was also like hardcore was happening then. And you had some bands like, I don't know if you remember, Leper was around like then. Remember that band? Yeah, I don't know if you remember that band, Pete. I saw those guys a couple of times. I wasn't a fan of them, but then we, you know, so the other drummer, Dan Shannon, leaves the band. He leaves our band because he's going to school, and he's also being a fisherman, and he just couldn't do both things. You know, he can't be at the loft until 4 a.m. it says in the movie, and then the next day he has to get up at 6 a.m. and work. So he was out. And TK lived on Orchard Street in Squantum, Mass, in Quincy. And on that street there was a drummer who was younger. And again, this is like funny, like you say, like about blocks. He was 17, I think, at the time, and we were 21. And that was like, oh, he's fucking only 17. Like, that's the big difference. Like, who cares about age now? But back then, and he was just starting out. He was like taking lessons from Frank Shoeshine in Quincy Center. And and the weirdest thing about it. So, anyways, we try him out. We like him. He's and he joins. And like, you know, his best friend is Springer, and Springer's from Quincy, and he has a band SSD, and they're playing out at the time. But that's a completely different scene. So you have SSD, Gangrene, DYS, Jerry's Kids, all these other bands, a whole nother faction. They play places like Gallery East. They'll play a church in Cambridge. They're not really playing clubs. They're anti-clubs, anti-capitalism, anti-drugs, right? Anti-alcohol, straight edge, which was all bullshit. But and we stayed kind of in our lane, and I think we just did our own thing. We love the Real Kids up to a point where they screwed us over one time, right, Pete?
Yeah, well, it wasn't one of those things. It was like, if you want to play with them, okay. But we played with them with the Del Flagos, and it was like, okay, you can play at Cantones on what was it, Friday maybe?
It was a Friday night, and and so we actually had a PA.
Did we bring the PA?
We brought the PA. So we brought a PA. It was a shitty PV PA, but we had our own PA, so we lugged it down there. We set it all up. We brought all our amps. They used our amps, drums, everything. and it was a full house. And at the end of the night, they took all the money, and we got like $20.
No, what happened was there was a
Was it?
they had a guarantee.
Yes.
Simple as that, and it was like for whatever $200 or something.
Yeah, it was a
We
lot.
got $200. We got $750, and the Flagos got $750. We're like, hey, what's wrong with this bitch?
Yeah, it was like $7.50. We're not talking $750.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and so I remember we learned the song
All Kinds of Girls,
and we changed it to All Kinds of Cash, right?
Yeah.
We were so.
But I mean, in hindsight, you can't blame them. They're smart enough to have a guarantee.
But it ended up like, eventually
They were established.
Paul became friends with Aldo, and we got to know John, and he was an okay guy. The rest of the band, I didn't really know the drummer Howie that well, they were a great sounding band, but they were like at their peak at their time, and they were kind of had attitude. So whatever, we totally understand it, but taking advantage of us guys is not going to be a good thing, because there's going to be payback at some point.
Oh yeah, wise guys from Dorchester. So the I want to get the timeline straight though. So you guys you stop playing at Cantones, you stop playing out. I don't know where else you're playing. You can fill me in. The hardcore stuff came a little bit later though, right? Because you're wrong. I mean, when did hardcore really start?
Well, that's not for me to say, but we did a lot of all ages shows right around the same time we were starting out. Remember, like Gallery East?
Yes.
Things like that.
And
and it would be a very mismatched thing. It'd be
Right.
like us, maybe the Del Fuegos, all the Springer's band, SSD.
Noonday Underground, remember, like that was one of the
Right.
bands, and then it would be
DJ
Stranglehold, but Stranglehold was more like us, maybe like Stiff Little Fingers a little bit, and then and Gangrene and Jerry's Kids would play with all those guys. We friends with those guys still.
We eventually just became friends with everybody. And like I said this in the documentary too, if we can credit ourselves with anything, we're kind of like a catalyst and kind of made this.
Hold on, Pete. Let me look that word up. I got to see what that means. Catalyst.
Yeah. So we'd play with, band X, and then we'd know them, and then we'd be their friends. We'd play with band X and band Y, and then they'd all know each other, and then so on and so forth,
It is true. Yeah.
Like your little fusion.
But and the thing about that at the time, so like our loft was like headquarters, right? And I swear our door was always open, right? Pete, downstairs.
Yeah.
Like we lived in a pretty shitty neighborhood at the time. It was like right beside the Pine Street, and it was at a kind of like inflation was bad. It was very depressed. So we had homeless people on the street, hookers out back. You'd wake up in the morning, use the bathroom, look outside, and there was a hooker in someone's car doing whatever, and you'd see that, like, wake up, that'd be the normal thing instead of looking out like into your yard or something. We'd be like, okay. Yeah. Well, that place became headquarters, and a lot of the bands that were coming from out of town that were playing needed a place to stay. They would stay at our house. We like once we got to know people, they'd say, hey, can you put these guys up for the night? And we would do that often. And also when we were doing the late night parties, we'd put together shows that would often be either a TK's band. If TK was in Last Stand, he also had Noonday. He had Joey O and the Strategos. And the Del Fuegos also were practicing there at the time, so they would also jump on, and then we would add another local band, whoever it was at the time. Like there was so many. Nat's, maybe Nat Friedberg's. I forget who he's playing with at that time. What was his first? The Flies.
Flies. Yeah.
It was a little later though. Like I'm getting the dates moved up, but
so it's all kind of compressed together.
Yeah, because we, again, like when you were talking about Thayer Street, we moved from 8 to 16. We had 8 Thayer Street, which was only 1,500 square feet. It was kind of small.
But it was the 4th floor, the top floor.
And we had access to the roof, which was great.
Roof access, so barbecues and shenanigans.
Right, but then what happened was, and there's a freight elevator that went up and down to get you to all. These are commercial lofts, and because they couldn't sell them at the time, that's why we got it at the reduced rate, because the owner, Narcosia, was just like, he didn't care, and we're paying cash. wasn't supposed, no one's supposed to be living there. It was just supposed to be used for commercial, but they didn't care at that time. So when the 3,000 square foot opened up, we moved from 8 to 16. Now we had 3,000 square feet, but we were we were on the 2 floors lower. But so the access, like imagine my finger right here is the elevator, right? They drove their motorcycles up into the freight elevator, would take them up, put them in the 2nd floor. Okay. Dickie Barrett took over the our 8
Billy.
8 with Billy, his
Billy
brother.
Barrett.
So Billy had chain link fence. Dickie was playing in, it was just the Boss Tones then they were called. They weren't called the Mighty Boss Tones.
No.
And they were just called the Boss Tones.
Are you sure? No, it was
Oh, it was the Cheapskates. I'm sorry. He was in the Cheapskates. It was like a ska band. At any rate, we were all friends. So now we had now this whole, it's turning into a little community over there on Thayer Street. You know everybody in the building. There's parties all the time. You come home. I mean, I don't think you could come home and just like, oh, I'm gonna chill tonight in my room and go to sleep and read a book. No, fucking every night. You come home. Oh, there's a party on the 2nd floor. Let's go over there. E-Min's having a reggae show next door. Like it was like insane.
Weren't there other bands? I was reading Brett Milano's book, and he said the Neats, the Prime Movers, Lizzie Borden, and the Axes.
Oh yeah. So we're so Lizzie Borden was practiced beside us when we were at 8. We could hear them practicing.
Yeah, as well as Dish too, wasn't they over there?
Dish was they shared that, and then the Prime Movers, the Prime Movers took over.
Old number 8, yeah.
They took over 8 after
with Billy.
Dickie, with Billy.
Yeah.
Cam Ackland lived up there, and so that was one of the bands that would play with us often and those things. we have a lot of stories about them, but we're not going to get into that. But
let's go back to kind of the early part. So it's like 1981. You started to play like the Rat, Canton, and stuff like that. So what's that scene like? And then and what are you playing then? What are your songs? Lenny and I were talking about some of your songs early. So you were playing because it sounded more like garagey stuff than Pete's influence. Later on, like I said, I remembered you guys when I was a kid. Well, not a kid. I was a couple years older than you, but when we were young, being just mental garage, awesome rock and roll. And then when I saw you with the Regent, and even when I saw you with the JP Porch Fest last year, he was still like sort of like the band I remember with a little more sophistication because you had James.
Yeah.
And then when I say at the Region, I go, what happened to these guys? They're unbelievably tight. I mean, they're like, and the sound is completely different. So, but let's go back to the beginning. So when you're playing, what are you playing when you first hit the Rat and Kentones and all those places?
Well, I mean, we're actually playing a little bit of punk. I mean, we, like I said, we were doing those a lot of different covers, but like Pete had wrote a song called Public Service. Okay. I don't know if you've ever heard that song, but it's like, it's probably 1 minute and 40 seconds long, and it's very, very punk. It's got great lyrics. I was still writing pop back then. Give Me the Shakes was out back then.
Yeah, right. That was kind of like our anchor song, pretty much.
Yeah. So, and then I had the song You Say, the first song I ever wrote, which I wrote in my senior year of high school. And I kind of just was trying to learn how to write. I was like 16 years old, and I just kept it in my back pocket. And that was one of the first songs. And Paul wrote a song called Weekends that we have still never released, and we have it. And
yeah,
it's great. It is like, so we were doing that sort of thing. So I think Peter and Paul and me were splitting up vocals pretty much, songs equally. And yeah, it was definitely a little hard. Like, I don't know. It's hard to say if it was punk. We were just doing what we were doing. And I don't know if we were influenced. Like, we didn't try to change, like we
just say,
just write what we
write. I wrote
is
this.
And this is the song that I wrote, and then I'm like, okay, I wrote that song about Sister Serena. I'm like, okay, this is it. And okay, it sounds garage. And as far as like moving forward and changing sound, I don't think we ever changed the sound. We've got tighter because we practice now without any outside distractions. And Pete still thinks that we don't practice enough. And when we end, so I mean, I'm jumping way ahead, but we added Jay how long ago? 5-6 years ago?
Yeah, like pre-COVID, right?
and that's Pete's friend, where he's at right now. He's the mandolin player.
So
And-
yeah, when I've been living down here for a while, and my kids and Jay's kids are kind of concurrent with one another, So we ended up, hanging out. Your friend when you get older, your kids make you friends. It seems, and so him and I started playing together, just kind of folky stuff. I sort of do a sideline with like Irish music that I had been doing since my aunt's St. Patty's Day living room in Southie since 1978 or whatever. So we kind of fleshed that out and just played on the side doing that. And we have this band called the Hired Men, and once in a blue moon we'll play if we're enticed properly, I guess. So, but Jay is a brilliant songwriter and musician. So
Yes.
we've added a mandolin player. Like,
Yes, we added the mandolin player, and the other thing is,
do the rules say anything against it? Rock and roll rules say
Right.
you can't have a mandolin player?
So,
Hey, the
no.
Mekons have a mandolin.
So we're gonna do it.
And then like with the singing and stuff like that. So me and Pete we sing together, but we don't harmonize, and we've never done that.
Yeah.
Me and
I have
Pete-
to say, in all honesty, I'm very one-dimensional when it comes to vocals.
You do it
So-
well, though. So let me back up for a second. So Lenny had this really good point. So on "Gimme the Shakes," the first 45, I guess, was Gimme the Shakes. That's like 1983, I think.
Yeah.
And the flip side's 20 Flight Rock, which is rockabilly. But
Yeah.
Lenny made a great point that "Gimme the Shakes" had horns on it, and he said Lenny made the point that most local records weren't that produced back in the day. Whose idea was to put the sax on "Gimme the Shakes," and then Sister Serena too, and who
Okay,
was the
so
place?
I
Somebody-
can tell you. So for "Gimme the Shakes," the single, which is harmonica, I think it was Pete's idea. We recorded that at SMAC, which is the Somerville Media Action Project, and we went over there, recorded a bunch of songs, and I think that we also recorded "Can't Stop Loving," right? Didn't we do that? I believe we did. It's
Yeah.
never been released, and Frank Rowe played. He played slide with a crescent wrench on that, right? And then
Something like that. Yeah.
and then he also played harmonica, and we released that.
Yeah.
And no, I'm sorry.
That wasn't the single.
No. The single was recorded by Rob Dimmitt at whatever the name of his studio was back then. But we went there with 20 Flight and that, and he played the harmonica.
Yeah.
It was Pete's idea to get Frank Rowe. When we did the first album and re-recorded "Gimme the Shakes," I was one who suggested Steve LaGregor from Barron's. And he came in, and that got ripped. Like, I remember Sweet Potato said that it sucked, and the out of tune like sax, which was bullshit. And it's funny, back then, you see the difference. Back then, critics were critics. If they thought it sucked, they said it.
Oh yeah.
Nowadays, oh, it's brilliant. Everything's fucking great. No, everything isn't great. I'd rather have the old days when they told the truth. Now, oh my God, can you hear the expression coming out of Peter's vocals? Oh my God. No, cut the shit. Just tell the truth. So, but anyway, so that's what happened there. As far as the horns, and I hate to give this guy any credit for it, but Johnny Angel, that was Johnny Angel, Johnny Kahn, Blackjacks. So he produced that record, and he suggested horns. And then he also, and we were like, do you know anyone with horns? And we used to play with this band, which is Jay Potts, is another guy, rest his soul. Jay Potts, the drummer for Skin. That band, we used to play with them at Jumpin' Jack Flash all the time. And Johnny Angel was like, yeah, can you get horns in here? I hear a like, da, 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 like, because we were thinking it sounded a little bit like, the Hawaii 5-0.
Yeah.
So he was like, da, 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 da. So if you listen to that song now, you don't realize it's surfy.
Yeah, it really does.
So we have a little.
It appears that way to me now. It didn't then.
Yeah. So you can do whatever you want, and it's great. And some of the shows that we've done lately, we've added like the guy from Stop Calling Me Frank, Terry O'Malley, has come up and he's played played sax on it, and it's fun. And when we were out in California, we played last December. the band. What was the name of the Legendary Swagger? We played with those guys. And
those guys were great.
Unbelievable. Like you see when you play with so many bands, there's another level. You're just like, oh God, can I just go home now? I don't want to fucking get up after these guys. And and this guy came up and played with us, and he learned the song in the dressing room. We just met him. They were also on Rumba, but they're from California. We're out there. We play with them. We ask him to come up, and he crushes it. And it was. So, anyways, the horns worked on that song. It did work on that song, and it's a fun song. But getting back to the original point, maybe we were a punk at the beginning. We've changed. I think now we're a little more polished because we have James in the band. His vocals are amazing. He makes my voice sound better. He knows how to hit the harmonies, and now people come up and like, oh, when did you guys learn how to sing? Like, look at that guy over there. That guy.
So let's go back again. So, like I said, the first memory I have of you guys is seeing you at the Rat. Like I said, you all look very young, even though I'm probably only a couple years older. You were totally mental, and there was definitely no horns, but Sister Serena is the one that I came out and just like remembered the most. And there was obviously no horns then because you're doing it live, but it was just, just blistering. I mean, the whole set was, but so what's that like? Is that 81? Is that right at the beginning? Or you guys?
Yeah, that's probably around 82, 83, I would say.
No. So that's 84. Sister Serena's 84. It's a later song.
We weren't getting Saturday nights at the Red till later.
Okay. And Saturday night again. All the stuff, that's Homestead. I wonder if I have a record here. I can actually tell you, to be sure, to be accurate.
Okay.
I probably don't. Nope, I don't have a record here. But I know it's 80. I know it's 85 because we released everything. Everybody does it in 86. So song was probably written in 84, released in 85.
Okay. So let's talk about some of the other songs. Lenny and I were just like sort of thinking about the songs that we knew, and we said like Drinking by the Pool.
Yeah.
So again, that's like I don't know. I wrote that just because I don't know. We wanted to write something fun, and we like, and I think we liked the Ramones at the time. It's got a little bit of that. It's also got a little surf.
I'll tell you one thing, that when we started doing it, and it's not really a riff, but I mean, I did steal it, of course. Is there's this old 50s song called Wild Weekend.
Oh yeah.
Do you know anything about? You ever hear it? It's like somebody wrote it like as a DJ's intro music in like 1958, but it's just a sax, bum, 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 bum,
Yeah.
And so I just appropriated that guitar line because that's part of it.
Then another song I'm going to ask you about, obviously, is one that I just listened to again the other day. It's like, Sure Don't Feel Like Christmas Time.
Oh yeah.
Now, who wrote that?
That's Paul.
My brother Paul wrote that.
Okay. Was that just, it's definitely doesn't sound like a lot of the other stuff. So
Yeah. Well, I don't
but
know
it's
whether
really, it's a great song.
it was like like a homework assignment because it was a Christmas compilation that it went on.
Correct.
But he had written it, and it was basically to sum up how shitty the Christmas season is for people if things aren't going their way.
Yeah.
Again, with a small community in Boston, and the Rat was kind of the center of things. We had just done the Homestead thing, and I was in the Rat, like in Lily, and the Del Fuegos were all working in the back, and there was this table right there in the very back, and Sam was there, and he was like, "Hey, we're doing and I think Paul was with me, and he was like, we're going to be doing a midnight Christmas mess compilation through Dutch East India, which is like also a subsidiary or something like that of Homestead. Can you write a Christmas song and have it to us by this time?" Paul was like, he was like, later to me, he goes, "I already have one written." And he had already been working on it. And basically then we started practicing, and we went into the studio, recorded it, gave it to them. The whole studio thing is in that documentary where Tommy Long talks about it, and it's pretty interesting. And it's a relevant song. It's one of those songs like, no one knows about low level bands like us. It's a rarity. You have to really like obscure bands. Although that song gets so much airplay, it's insane. It's like that song and Pussy Whipped and Thayer Street. Those three songs get so much airplay. It's like because we get the BMI, and it'll tell you it'd be like 150,000 plays on Spotify, and then here's your check for $10.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. But the Boss Tones, the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones covered it, of course.
Yeah. 97. Yeah.
It's one of those things where I remember when they said, "Hey, we're going to cover your song," and naturally they're on top of the world and all that. So we think, hey, maybe we're going to have a little paid day here. Wouldn't that be nice? But instead it's like, no, the benefits are going to the starving homeless drunks of
No, it wasn't that. No, it wasn't the starving homeless drunks. It was it was for the Phoenix House, which helps musicians that have no insurance.
Right. Oh. So obviously it's
anyways, we got no money.
So and now, so you want him to record it? Go ahead.
It's the 20th of December. The rain is coming down. Kenmore Square's deserted now. The college kids have left town, and it sure don't feel like Christmas time. It sure doesn't feel like Christmas time. It sure don't feel like Christmas time.
Yeah, it's funny when you were talking about Thayer Street, the single Thayer Street. I was telling Lenny earlier, Thayer Street's a more conventional sound too. It's more like I was telling Lenny, it's sort of like a Dave Clark 5 song or something. I don't know, but I mean, it's like it's a lot more conventional, right?
Yeah.
Well, we all write different, right? I write that style. Pete writes the more like Clash, sort of like hard rocking.
Yeah.
I do the pop, and Paul definitely was in between, I would say.
Yeah.
Maybe with a like bluesy punk feeling,
Yeah, definitely the Doll's influence was very heavy, always with him, it seemed.
Yeah.
What are the songs that you guys did that, I mean, because we can dig them up and put them on the podcast. It's like sometimes there are songs that people don't necessarily know, but as an artist, you go, "This is something that I really just am proud of, and I just think is awesome." Because I know you're like a rock.
None of them, none of those. Sorry.
I was like thinking, Pete. I was just like trying to what one.
You like your own hits? Okay, good. They're great songs.
No, actually, you know what? It's one of the songs that I wrote. I wrote. No, like
Right.
when we did the new stuff with Rumbar, I wrote a song called "The Ballad of Wilbur Ross."
Yeah.
Oh, I worked on that. That was a thoughtful song, and it's not my usual like pop ditty girl song, but
Yeah.
that one it worked, and we never play it. I think we've only played it live once, right?
Yeah. That's because you know who Wilbur Ross is. He's I forget his title. Is he the secretary of something or other in the Trump administration?
Anymore.
Yeah. I
He's
just
just a very old.
It was listen to the lyrics on that.
Scumbag. Jerk.
We destroy him.
He's been fully eclipsed by worse scumbags and jerks.
And but Jay's mandolin is featured prominently on that song, and it sounds nice. Like it sounds like like a folky sort of like pop. I don't know. It's hard to sound, but then you hear the lyrics and you're like, oh God. So I'm kind of proud of that song.
When do you guys transition from like playing the Rat, being a local guys, to going on the road? Because I was looking at the people that you played with. I dug it up somewhere. It was probably Wikipedia. Thank you, God. But it was you said you ended up playing with like the Bangles. That's kind of an odd combination. Los Lobos on there.
They were really nice. They were cool.
Yeah.
Well,
First time I ever had Salsa was hanging out in the back room at the Rat with the Los Lobos.
Yeah. So basically, I'm going to tell you right now what basically happened. So after the first record we put out, which was Thayer Street and didn't have Thayer Street on it, Which is weird. So that's the first record comes out, and like Hardcore Rule gets like incredible airplay on WMBR. Okay, so we're getting that, and we released that as a single before it comes out. The owner of Homestead calls and goes, "This is doing so well." And then it gets on the cover of CMJ, which is the College Music Journal. It's a big deal. And now people that never talked to us before, like WB San and all the people, are all being nice to us. And now we're getting offered shows. Now a manager comes to us from me and I say, "Hey, we want to manage your band." Now all of a sudden the shows change. So now there's a separation between the band. Before, now we're calling the club. We're calling the rap. We're calling. Now we're just focusing on the music. Manager comes in, says, this band is doing well. This is what we want. Now all of a sudden, "Hey, do you guys want to open up for the Bengals? Do you want to do this show? You want to do that? You want to tour here?" More money, better shows, better representation. You're doing the job that you're supposed to do. Play the music, write the songs. We'll handle this side of it. And it wasn't a lot of money or anything like that, but you could see that's the evolution. It's just like being, a minor league baseball player. You're in single A and they're like, "Oh, we see a little talent here. All right, well, why don't you stick to that? We're gonna try to make you better. We're gonna coach you up." And then you go to the next level. And that's kind of what happens. And we were doing well. We were kept moving up. But again, when that happens, you have more pressure on you, and they want you to do better, and also there's a limited amount of time. I always look at because music changes. Even though you stick to your roots and what you do, the flavor of the month, like people they change what they like. The radio stations back then, that was a big deal. It doesn't matter anymore. Back then, college radio was built for us back then, and it was great. And we were fortunate for the years that we had, but and then when Paul passed away, I mean, that pretty much ended it. That was it,
So you guys were booking, and then when Paul, can you guys talk a little bit about that? I had a brother, Paul. He passed when I was 22, and
Really?
I was destroyed for a year. I went really. I mean, I'm a drunk anyway, but I don't drink anymore. But but I was like destroyed. I remember just doing a lot of blow and a lot of like crystal meth before it was meth, just almost having a nervous breakdown and just like
Pete's doing blow right now and crystal meth.
But yeah, it was horrible. So in this, I mean, it must have destroyed you as your twin, but I mean, plus the band. Want to just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can talk about it. Sure. It's and a lot of people don't understand what it's like to be a twin. Like, okay, it's you. Like I say in a documentary, when you're a little kid, you just used to having somebody who looks just like you in front of you and you're interacting with, and it's like, I don't know. There's a lot to it that, but I never thought about it in any of those terms. It was just this natural thing, So when it all came to an end, it was a very bad shock, And I was, chronologically an adult. I was 26 years old. So it was bad. And I think about it in terms of, we were lucky to have that sort of relationship and being able to do this, ultimately creative thing together. But it really was pretty devastating to have to carry on. But, I come from a big family, and that's one of the sources of strength. And like, and I'm just like everybody else. I like to drink beer and all that stuff, but I resisted the temptation to go off the deep end because why,
Yeah.
So I just carried on, and, the band was essentially over at this time. This was, 86, October 23rd, 1986. So I had like family stuff I had to dedicate myself to. So I basically drove a truck for the next decade hauling hazardous waste, just like, nose to the grindstone. What are you going to do? And the good times would be when it would be, I from time to time hear from Jerry and like, hey, they want us to do a show and get together and do a benefit. Maybe, we do that, once a year or once every 3 years, once every 5 years. So it was the highlight, and it wasn't like I'm living in the past. I used to be in this kid, and it was so much fun. And now, like, it's all miserable, you know. And I did a little bit of stuff on the side here and there as far as music goes, and I kind of was doing more like that folky sort of Irish thing and trying to, you know, more of a family oriented thing that I was doing. But it's just really hard. And one of the things that I want to say without like, I don't know if it sounds weird, but it was in a sense I was at my own funeral, because I'm sure it would have been exactly the same if I was the one who died, you know. And you know, life would carry on around me, and people would coalesce around Paul because he's a survivor, and you know, I really had good support and a good family, and then that's one of the things that really helped. But it was just time, you know. Time has to go by, as you know, Mike. You know, time has to go by to heal all that shit, and it's still, you know, it's bittersweet, you know, that we're still doing it. And one of the good thing is that my older brother Jimmy is the bass player now, so he just jumped right in, and it's just this natural transition. And my other brother Johnny, he lives out in Arizona. He's been in a bunch of bands too, back in the day, and so he just joined us this July. We did a bunch of shows this past July, and just had a great time. And it's just, you know, natural and fun as can be, and just like it always was. Which is, I think why we do it, because it's fun and it's a blast. And
when did you guys start ramping it up again? Because I mean, I knew you were like only doing the occasional show, and then like was it around when you added James, or
it was just a little before that? Because and Jerry said this, and I got to give him credit because I'll always remember it. He goes, you know, we should get together and start recording some more material. We don't have much time left. Like, you know, well, he ain't shitting. We're all like across the line at 60 or so. And maybe there's tons of people who don't want to see an old band get, you know, back together. But maybe there's some people who do, and who cares anyway? We're going to do it, you know. So
go ahead, sorry.
So that's what we've been doing, and it's great, because I was kind of like, I don't know, just kind of shy about my songwriting and creativity, and now I'm just like, hey, I don't care. Like I said, there's not a lot of time left. You know, I'm a fool for wasting any time, not, you know, making material or doing whatever comes to my mind. You know.
Hey Pete, tell them we also have some new stuff coming out, right?
Yeah, we got some new stuff coming out, of course.
But you guys released a song and an album in 2019, right?
2019, we released "She's the One."
She's the One, right?
That was our single, and that's very Buddy Holly-ish. The lead by Pete is absolutely brilliant, even though he completely ripped off Buddy Holly on that, but it's still awesome. And then we released
don't tell anybody, it's Peggy Sue Got Married. You know, ever heard of that song?
then we released more stuff last year with Rumbar, and then we have another like 7 songs that we're going to release probably in January, February, and then in a couple of weeks we're going to release one more single from the stuff we just recorded. And Pete just wrote this great song called Scarlet Letter. You can talk about that, Pete.
Yeah, I can talk about that. So I guess just pre-COVID, prior to Putin invading Ukraine, I decided to write a song about the AK-47 rifle because, it's very topical topic, and so there's this Irish folky song called Little Armalite, which is kind of like a hilarious take on the, Armalite rifle. And so I sort of did a rejoinder to that. And it's basically saying like well, I don't know. If you listen to it, it's kind of saying, it's ubiquitous worldwide. So years ago when people used to settle their differences by throwing rocks at each other and hitting each other with sticks and spears. And now, now everyone has one of these friggin' things, and they're, that's the new norm, and it's nothing new, of course. But then right after I wrote it, Putin invaded, so it's like I could have had a couple better verses now.
That's I can't believe we live in a country where they let people just do that shit. Nobody needs an AR-15, AK-40. Uvalde and all that stuff. Did you write that after Uvalde?
No, but that's pretty much a case in point. It's like, oh, good guy with a gun, huh? Shut the fuck up, And now we live in a world where it's like, maybe if you did live in the middle of, what if you do live in Montana? What if you do live here and there? So I can see where you might need it, but okay, if you really need that thing. But you don't, it's like
not at a Waffle Hut. You don't need one.
Exactly. The whole,
it's like when you get bad service, you're going to fucking take the waitress out. I mean,
yeah, that's the world we're going to live in now,
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But we're going to see you at the Rat Reunion on the 21st. And we probably won't have this produced until like Labor Day anyway. So we'll probably have to wrap it up with this. But I just really appreciate you guys coming on. Like I said, I've always appreciated it as a band, and having you guys on is just great.
Yeah, and like we said, we might have touched on a lot of things, but there's so much more, like hilarious, stupid stories, and who played with who and all that stuff.
Hey, Pete.
Yes.
Did you hear that he called us polished?
I'm not Polish. I'm Irish.
I almost fell over. I was like, "Are you fucking shitting me? Come on."
You did.
I can take that. I can edit that out if you want.
So we're gonna do a practice this coming Saturday, and it's we need to. It's pretty good,
You guys are great at the region. So I don't know.
Like that show, was that sounded good?
That's what I said. I was just stunned that it was like that.
How did you like Barron Whitfield jumping up and we didn't even practice with him?
That was really cool.
It's a good thing I remembered that little lick from that.
Yeah, it was like down. It was the Georgia slop, right?
I know.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a good time. But we've been writing some more material, and Jay, who's not here, is even though I'm in his house, I'm hoping he'd come around the corner, and he could talk about some of the songs that he did, or if we're wrapping it up. And I just wrote this one that we recorded called "The Scarlet Letter," and it's about the Scarlet Letter. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is originally about religious hypocrisy. So everything doesn't have to be like a message and "fuck you, I told you so," But it can be fun.
Do you have another hour? Because that's how long people be talking.
No. We gotta go.
Actually, I'm known to be succinct at times, and this will be one of them.
All right, maybe we'll have you back on for part 2. We'll do nothing but talk stories. So,
all right,
great.
All right, it was great to meet you, Pete. Great to meet you,
All right,
Jerry.
Mike. Lenny.
All right, thanks again.
Yeah,
See you, Pete.
thanks
I'll
for having
see
us.
you next month.
Yes.
Okay.
All right,
Ciao
so
for now.
Thanks for listening to Rat Tales, Boston Rock Stories. Rat Tales is produced and directed by Lenny, Scolletta, and Mike Hoban, with a huge thanks to Medford Community Media in beautiful downtown Medford, Massachusetts.